Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, good morning. Good Monday morning, everyone. Hope you're feeling real rested, with the clocks going back. You get that extra hour.
Yesterday was like the
Yeah.
longest day
It was the
ever.
longest day. It was very long.
Man, it's so dark. And then I looked at
Long
the
day.
clock and it was only 6 o'clock. I'm like, ugh.
The funny thing is, at some point yesterday, the girl child was like, I can't believe it's already dark. And she goes, it's weird. It's like 6 o'clock or 6:30. It's dark. I said, well, the clocks went back, and she's like, oh, you don't, other than our microwave and our stove, every other clock automatically adjusts. And I'm sure the more modern, virtually every, even your household appliances, are connected to the internet now. Our stove just isn't, nor is our microwave. So that's why I had to manually change those times. But back in the day, of course, you had to do that with all of your clocks, but increasingly, you can just forget about it.
Right.
I could not even realize that you've got that adjustment taking place because your phone automatically does it. Everything that has if you watches that are digital automatically do it, and it just wasn't that way once upon a time. I remember once when I was a kid getting dropped off at Sunday school and walking in, and there wasn't a soul in sight because my mom had just, I guess, forgotten the daylight savings time, and again, back in the day also, if you forgot it, I mean, it would be on the news and probably in the newspaper, and talked about on the radio, but it wasn't like today where automatic updates take place and you have all these reminders all over social media, people talking about it or whatever. And yeah, just kind of wandering around for a while until eventually I think one of the Sunday school teachers, I mean, this was second or third grade, happened to have been there. And so I just sat in a classroom for the longest time. But I think increasingly that doesn't necessarily happen because of everything changing automatically.
I had a little bit of a panic attack this
Oh,
morning. I was about halfway here and then I
you looked at your car.
yeah, I looked at my car clock and it was like 6:42 and I'm like,
Well,
oh.
my truck again. It's not modern enough to where it adjusts on its own, and it wasn't this morning, but yesterday, I guess around 5 o'clock, somewhere around there. Oh, I know what it was. I flipped on KSGF, and I thought, well, that show shouldn't be running right now. And then I realized, oh, my clock. I have to reset my clock. But I hope everybody feels really rested, and I can't believe we're still going through this ridiculous daylight savings time thing. This is something that still happens, the back and forth. It just seems as if the vast majority of people, including elected officials, are like, yeah, it's time for this to go away, but it's just like not happening. Let's just do it. Just do it already. Maybe an executive order. Just which will force that. You can't do that. All right, then just go ahead and do it. Whatever it takes. Just change it already. Man, you're getting all sorts of good reviews. I opened up the text line this morning and just wanted to let you know what a great, fantastic addition Sarah is to listen to every Saturday morning.
Aw, well, thanks.
Yeah.
We were pretty heated on Saturday.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Get all fired up
I
Saturday
did.
morning? Well, I heard you and Kyle. I was out and about, and
I got angry during his show too.
man, you just
I know.
fired on all cylinders. But yeah, and then another from Charlene texting in this morning. Another fantastic farm report, Sarah.
Good. Glad you like those.
For those that don't know, because you don't tune in that early, there are farm reports that run around 5:20, and they're sponsored by Scramblers. They're usually about 60 seconds, just an update on things that are going on in the ag world, and that is one of the shutdowns that has occurred. Those ag reports have not been updated, and so Sarah's been doing her own little ag reports, and people seem to like them.
It's just silly stories at my farm.
That's right. It's your own farm reports with Mr. Pickles. And
Yep.
what, did I hear you talking about a one-eyed chicken or something?
Yes,
Or what was that?
I do have a half-blind chicken. Her name is Wonky.
Okay.
Yeah. The neighbor's dog got to her.
Oh,
I know.
wonky.
But that's okay. She gets special treatment.
That hits home
Yeah?
because when I was 5 or 6, I had to have surgery on one of my eyes because it was my left eye. It was like all out of my nerve ending. Everything was messed up. They had to like get back there and fix it. But it was a severe. I was essentially, they say lazy. I was basically cross-eyed, and the girl child just always, since she was little, when I'd show her photos, thought that was hysterical, and she always, in fact, one of my profiles on one of our different streaming services is wonky eye, because that's what she's. That's what she's you back when you had your wonky eye, she would say when I'd talk about being a kid, little, and she was little. Back when you had your wonky eye, yeah, when I had my wonky eye. So
That's funny.
so having a chicken named Wonky Eye, that
So
really
yeah,
it hits home.
you're Wonky Eye
Yeah,
Senior.
I am. I am. Let's see. So after that, Chiefs game yesterday, which was so unhopeful until bong, the uprights got hit, and then you thought, are the Chiefs going to bring it back? And then they did not. Or I guess not bring it back. I don't think they were ever ahead. But then there was 60 minutes, and President Trump sat down with Norah O'Donnell, and we will play some of the sound from that. Everything from her trying to get Trump to essentially spill classified information about what our plans are if when it comes to China and Taiwan. And I love the media. On one hand, they like to portray Trump as this reckless individual that mishandles information that shouldn't be made public, and then they sit down and try to pry him to provide information that probably would not be in the best interest of the United States in terms of national security. Also, just about nuclear testing, and if he is happy with the way things have been playing out in terms of deportation of illegals, another ship narco terrorist taken out. This is something the administration has not pulled back on in the face of political opposition. Of course, Democrats in particular. Anyone that is an enemy to the United States, therefore Donald Trump is a friend of theirs, and so they have taken up the cause for those narco terrorists. Families of those who have lost their lives to drug overdoses that have been imported by these sorts of people are standing behind Donald Trump. But I want to talk a little bit about the latest there, and it's just a very full morning. The Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. Now the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 66. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 46. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 72. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 73.
I want a great homeloan.com. If you have home loan needs, you have the Carrickers, you have their team. Interest rates, will they fall even more? The mental block a lot of people have in pulling the trigger, even though maybe you need to upsize, downsize, you're wanting to move maybe out into the country or closer to the city, is the fact that depending on your age, you remember interest rates being at 3%, 4%, and it's just hard to look at those prices, or sorry, the current day interest rates and think, oh man, that seems so high. But you're not married to it. The lower the interest rates, the more people out there looking to buy homes, and the more somebody knows they can sell their home for because you can borrow more money. And so having lower interest rates does have its downside because it has an impact on the price of homes, logically causing those prices to actually go up. So you can go ahead and pull the trigger now with a bit of a higher interest rate and take advantage of the, relatively speaking, lower prices for homes due to the interest rates. But then when interest rates drop, refinance. Now, it's an overly simplistic way of looking at it, but that is how so often it works out. Your specific scenario, contact the Carrickers and their team. Find out what is right for you. I want a great homeloan.com. Donald Trump, 60 Minutes. Yesterday, sitting down with Norah O'Donnell. Yesterday, late afternoon, anyhow, after the Chiefs game, it was broadcast, that interview, and one of the questions that was asked was regarding illegal immigration and whether Donald Trump is happy with the way things are going.
You campaigned on immigration. You largely won the election on a promise to close the border,
don't you think?
and you succeeded on that. Illegal crossings at the southern border are at a 55-year low. More recently, Americans have been watching videos of ICE tackling a young mother, tear gas being used in a Chicago residential neighborhood, and the smashing of car windows. Have some of these raids gone too far?
No, I think they haven't gone far enough because we've been held back by the judges, by the liberal judges that were put in by Biden and by Obama.
You're okay with those tactics?
Yeah, because you have to get the people out. You know, you have to look at the people. Many of them are murderers. Many of them are people that were thrown out of their countries because they were, criminals.
Well, you promised in your campaign that you were going to deport the worst of the worst. Violent criminals,
we're doing that.
Rapists.
Well, that's what we're doing.
But a lot of the people that your administration has arrested and deported aren't violent criminals. Landscapers, nannies, construction workers.
Landscapers are criminals. Yeah. No, look.
The family of U.S. service
I need
members.
landscapers and I need farmers more than anybody, okay?
Is it your intent to deport people who do not have a criminal record?
We have to start off with a policy, and the policy has to be you came into the country illegally, you're going to go out. However, you've also seen you're going to go out, we're going to work with you, and you're going to come back into our country legally.
Now, a couple of things here. Well, one, I love that, as usual, Trump doesn't back down, and she begins the segment by listing how successful this has been. Lowest in 55 years in terms of folks coming across into this country illegally. And she lists down all the statistics. It's been a success. Now, the latter part of the conversation is, well, you promised you'd be going after criminals, and that's exactly what it is. That has been priority number one for the Trump administration, if anything, because logistically that is the easiest route to go. Those are the individuals, many of which our government knew where they were. People may forget part of the reason, and this is a sad revelation of how pro-criminal the previous administration was, how quickly and immediately the Trump administration was able to swoop up some of these rapists and murderers and sex traffickers because our government knew where they were. But they were given a free pass to roam our streets, roam our neighborhoods, our schools, our workplaces under the Biden administration. Now, what would occur, and I've explained this before, but it is important to understand. If there is a raid on some sort of home, and in that, because of a human trafficker and a rapist, and while they are there, they raid the home to capture this dangerous individual, and other people are detained. If it would turn out that other of those people that were detained were in the country illegally, they would begin the deportation proceedings, even if they weren't an illegal criminal. Because what sense does it make, or even if they weren't a criminal, they'd committed some sort of violent act, what sense would it make to say, well, yes, you are here illegally, and part of this administration's plan is to deport everyone who's in this country illegally, but it's not quite your turn yet, so we're going to let you go and then spend all of the man hours and the financial resources to try to get you later. That doesn't make any sense. Now, it may to the traditional government person that relies on inefficiencies and failures, but when you're talking about running things as efficient as possible, when those individuals would be detained due to the targeting of somebody who was a violent criminal, and if they are in the country illegally, then you don't let them go only to go back and try to get them later. So that's part of the reason some of these individuals were individuals that may not have had a violent criminal past, but were deported or began the deportation proceeding. I love how she lists these people. Well, some of them are gardeners, and like those people can't be criminals. I mean, it's just the absurdity of some of this. She also, we have to break this mindset that people who come into this country illegally should be treated differently than anyone who's an American citizen that violates the law. It's almost this accepted automatic response. And you hear it in the question, for example, that Nora O'Donnell poses here. She's like, well, in some of these instances, a mother was tackled and a car window was broken while trying to capture some of these individuals who have violated the immigration laws, some of which, of course, are, again, violent criminals. I mean, are you happy with those tactics? Do we concern ourselves if somebody is evading law enforcement in any other capacity as a law-abiding citizen, particularly a white person, and it results in law enforcement breaking a window, do we act as if that somehow is beyond the pale? Of course not. If I am having interaction with law enforcement and I am fighting them physically, and I am refusing to comply, and because of that, I get pinned to the ground and handcuffed, that is the way that it works. But for whatever reason, those are tactics that somehow are so appalling if you're in this country illegally. I mean, should we not even carry handcuffs, our law enforcement? This bizarre world that the left has crafted, number one, that there's this one set of laws that for whatever reason, not only do people who are not citizens they don't have to follow them, but it's somehow virtuous to violate them, and it's beyond the pale to enforce them. Where are my laws that I get to ignore? Can we set some, I don't know, set-asides here for the rest of us? I've equated it to driver's license. Getting a driver's license can be a hassle. People do it all the time. Costs money. Got to go through a test. Got to, go wait at the DMV. Sometimes that's a hassle. Then, of course, sometimes you show up and you got to have this and that. Well, do you have your tax, your past proof of paying your property taxes? And do you have the inspection? No, I don't. All right, well, you got to go back and get that. And sometimes it's easier than other times, but it's not always easy. What if I just decided, I don't want to go through that process? No, don't think I'm going to do it. Do I get away with that? Do I get to argue what a hassle it is? Do I get to say, well, I was going to, but, the process to sign up and take the written test, and then I got to go, and, I got to pay money, and then I have to prove that I pay the price, and I can't afford it. I just don't have the money to do it. And then, have you seen how long I went down to the DMV, and the wait time was like an hour and a half? I don't have that kind of time. Do I get to just say no? Or paying taxes? The hassle of that? Especially if you're going to try to do it on your own and you got to get all the receipts and you have to get all this, stuff. What if I was just, I don't think I want to do that. Where are the people standing on the side of the road with their signs defending my right to violate those laws? It really is an amazing snapshot of how easily en masse it can be to manipulate people in a way that they don't even recognize, doesn't even make sense. It's so inconsistent that they have, and there was a local report, some of these, idiots standing on the side of the road with their signs, oh, ICE, get rid, stop deportations. Why is it that law? How did you come upon, do you ever ask yourself that question? Why is it that those particular sets of laws that you support people violating? And none others. Why is it that those, quote, families that get separated you pitch a fit about, but you know how many, the number of people in prison who have kids back at home right now? Lots and lots of them. Tons of them. I'd venture to say there's a good chance that a majority of people in prison, whether they know it or not, actually have kids out there. Those are families separated. Why don't you care about those people? You ever stop to ask yourself these questions? Every argument that you make regarding the issue of people being deported out of this country who are here illegally, that argument can be made regarding any other crime in this country. So have you asked yourself, why is it that I care about this one and no others? Why is it that I care about absolving these people and breaking these laws but no other? Now, I could tell you the answer. It's because you've been manipulated for political purposes. You are what, once upon a time, the term was coined, useful idiot. You don't ask questions. Doesn't matter how contradictory the behavior is. It doesn't matter that it's not grounded in any sort of logic whatsoever. You just go out there with your sign sitting on the side of the road. And of course, as I've noted in the past, if you really truly cared about these people, you would be spending that time volunteering to help people who are trying to become legal citizens do so. You would be volunteering to help them through the paperwork. You would be volunteering to help them study. There's all sorts of different ways you can help those people in a meaningful way that helps them actually become law-abiding citizens. But that takes too much effort, doesn't it? It's so much easier just to sit on the side of the road, watching the traffic go by with your little sign and feeling so virtuous. Congratulations. You've helped absolutely no one. Pyramid Roofing Company text line 417-447-KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Coming up after traffic, just got a couple minutes post that. Of course, weather. But more audio regarding China and nuclear weapons. Donald Trump sitting down with Norah O'Donnell. She tries to get him essentially to spill what would be national security secrets, which I find it just hilarious, given that the media, along with the previous administration, did everything they could to try and imprison Donald Trump, masquerading the reason for it, or at least one of the instances, was his recklessness when it came to information that could have national implications. And yet here, sitting down with him, trying to get him to reveal things regarding what our plans are or could be potentially regarding our military forces in China with a potential invasion of Taiwan. That coming up. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 66. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 46. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 72. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny with a high near 73.
I'd love to see business owners, let's say in Springfield, and citizens take the approach that people on the left have taken with illegal immigration when it comes to like building codes and inspections, and just be like, no, we're not going to do it. No, we're not going to participate in that any longer. Yes, we know that there's a proper way to do it. Yes, we know there's a proper pathway of compliance and with the government, and we have to go through a certain process. But we're just not going to do it any longer. Do you think people on the left, whenever the city would shut those businesses down and say, you can't open, you don't have a permit, do you think these left-wingers would be out there defending their rights? Of course not. It's only people who are not Americans. It's only people who have come into this country illegally. Back to 60 Minutes. Norah O'Donnell sat down with President Donald Trump, and it was last week, or maybe it was last week, and sometime in the last week or so, Trump talked about reinstituting testing of nuclear weapons.
Less than an hour before your meeting with President Xi, you posted on social media that you instructed the, quote, Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons
That's right.
immediately. What did you mean?
Well, we have more nuclear weapons than any other country. I think we should do something about denuclearization. And I did actually discuss that with both President Putin and President Xi. We have enough nuclear weapons to blow up the world 150 times. Russia has a lot of nuclear weapons, and China will have a lot. They have some. They have quite a bit. But
so why do we need to test our nuclear weapons?
Well, because you have to see how they work. You do have to. And the reason I'm saying testing is because Russia announced that they were going to be doing a test. If you notice, North Korea is testing constantly. Other countries are testing. We're the only country that doesn't test, and I don't want to be the only country that doesn't test.
Are you saying that after more than 30 years, the United States is going to start detonating nuclear weapons?
I'm saying that we're going to test nuclear weapons like other countries do, yes.
But the only country that's testing nuclear weapons is North Korea. China and
Russia's testing nuclear weapons.
My understanding...
And China's testing them too, you just don't know about it.
That would be certainly very newsworthy. My understanding is what Russia did recently was test essentially the delivery systems for nuclear weapons, essentially missiles, which we can do that, but not with nuclear weapons.
Russia's testing and China's testing, but they don't talk about it. We're a open society. We're different. We talk about it. We have to talk about it because otherwise you people are going to report. They don't have reporters that are going to be writing about it. We do.
It's clear by the questioning here, this is meant to make the decision seem as if it's not grounded in any sort of reality. And that, of course, as always, this is the wrong thing to do. Downplaying, trying to essentially put him in a category with Kim Jong-un. Well, I mean, in reality, North Korea is the only country that's testing weapons. So, you're just not only just like Hitler, but you're also just like Kim Jong-un. To which he notes, no, there are other countries. He lists China, of which she says, well, that's certainly newsworthy, but then just moves on. No, this is the state of journalism today. She acknowledges, oh, man, that is newsworthy. Okay, let's just continue to talk about other things or talk about other aspects of this. Newsworthiness, okay, we can move on beyond that. Noting that the Russians, well, I mean, it's my understanding that they're actually just testing the delivery system of it. Like, that's not a big deal. I don't know about you, but, to some degree, some might argue that's even more significant and more dangerous. It's one thing to have developed and have the ability to detonate a nuclear weapon, but having a way to get it over here more easily, that seems pretty significant. And the whole point here is this approach of trying to downplay it, to make it seem as if this isn't necessary. And listen, intelligent people can have different perspectives on this. But these questions are not intelligent questions. These pushbacks are not coming from a place of intelligence. Well, it's my understanding. All they're doing is, figuring out, testing, make sure that they could actually get it, hit Washington, D.C. or New York or Los Angeles. That's all. Oh, okay, I guess that's nothing to worry about then. regarding the possibility of utilizing U.S. forces when it comes to dealing with any potential invasion of Taiwan by China.
Did you order U.S. forces to defend Taiwan?
You'll find out if it happens. And he understands the answer to that.
Why not say
This
it?
never even came up yesterday as a subject. He never brought it up. People were a little surprised at that. He never brought it up because he understands it, and he understands it very well.
Do you mind if I ask, when you say he understands, why not communicate that publicly to the rest of us? What does he
Because
understand?
I don't want to give away. I can't give away my secrets. I don't want to be one of these guys that tells you exactly what's going to happen if something happens. The other side knows, but I'm not somebody that tells you everything because you're asking me a question. But they understand what's going to happen, and he has openly said, and his people have openly said at meetings, we would never do anything while President Trump is president because they know the consequences.
More stupid questions. And not because it is an irrelevant issue. It's a severely relevant issue. Whether or not and it's going to depend president to president, we would commit actual troops in order to defend Taiwan. And then, of course, what does that mean? In what capacity? Those are massively significant potential scenarios. But the idea that he's going to be like, oh, yeah, this is what we're going to do. I don't even mind the question being asked, but this feigned confusion over, as she's like, well, then, I mean, gosh, why don't you just tell the rest of us? My response would be, how long have you been doing this, Nora? How long have you been a journalist? 20 years, 30 years? You're telling me you really don't understand why I don't tell you that? You're really telling me that you can't figure out why the President of the United States, given this position that we have from Democrat to Republican, our foreign policy approach with China and dealing with Taiwan is essentially, hey, we're going to kind of stay out of this thing and being non-committal. It's deliberate. Everybody knows it, whether it's the right thing to do or not. We've been non-committal when it comes to what we do in this situation, what would we do in that situation. And you really now, sitting here, knowing that, or maybe you don't know that, but assuming that you know the background, you know our country's approach when it comes to China and Taiwan, you're really confused as to why it is that I don't, on national television, announce exactly what our plans would be in terms of committing troops in some capacity and what that capacity would be should China invade Taiwan. See, the recklessness of the media today is people who don't know any better can hear this type of response from Donald Trump that is completely responsible and consistent with every president we've had in dealing with this particular situation. But because of the way the question is asked, we'll make it sound like, well, Trump just doesn't even know what he's doing. It sounds like he doesn't know what he would do. He's refusing to answer. Why is he being so cagey? This is scary stuff. And, of course, that's the point. It is to craft questions in a manner that will leave an audience inferring not, well, of course, this is an obvious answer because this is our position as it has been with past presidents, but instead to be fearful, to further think Trump doesn't know what he's doing. Trump may have some secret plan here he's not wanting to discuss. I mean, look how Nora Donald, she's like, well, gosh, why don't you just tell everyone? She knows exactly what she's doing. And and this, of course, is why people don't increasingly trust the media, because even when it's whether it's subtle or obvious, these are not questions meant to add to our knowledge. They certainly aren't questions that are asked through the context of, hey, we're all Americans here. It is seek and destroy. It is to create doubt amongst the minds of Americans when it comes to Donald Trump. That this is, and this is what you get. I'm going to take traffic and then one more audio bit coming up as she asked him laughably, but typically, listing the different individuals that are under indictment by federal grand juries. And gosh, they all have one thing in common. They're your political opposition. Golly gee, what do you think about that? That audio next. "60 Minutes" interview Donald Trump and Nora O'Donnell, and she asked about political retribution, noting that all of these folks that are facing charges, indictments, all have one thing in common.
James Comey, John Bolton, Letitia James were all recently indicted. There's a pattern to these names. They're all public figures who have publicly denounced you. Is it political retribution?
You know what? You know who got indicted? The man you're looking at. I got indicted, and I was innocent. And here I am because I was able to beat all of the nonsense that was thrown at me. And yet, when you go after a dirty cop like Comey, or a guy like Bolton, who I hear has, I don't know anything about it. I hear he took records all over the place. Who knows? Letitia James is a terrible, dishonest person, in my opinion.
Did you instruct the Department of Justice to go after
Not
her?
in any way, shape, or form. No, you don't have to instruct them because they were so dirty, they were so crooked, they were so corrupt that the honest people we have, Pam Bondi's doing a very good job.
Now, you and I, we understand the absurdity of this and the presentation from the 4 years of the Biden administration, that every one of these indictments piling up, that it clearly meant against Donald Trump, targeting him. Obviously, he was guilty of something. Anytime there would be any reference to this being signs of Biden trying to imprison Donald Trump, it would be the media, it would be the Nora O'Donnells that would be front and center saying there's no proof of that. There's no proof of the connection to the White House. Despite the fact that so many of these prosecutors were making visits to the White House. They would bend over backwards. Oh, these were grand juries. No, this was Jack Smith. No. The White House it's reckless to suggest such a thing. To the about face, just assuming, of course. Well, did you direct this? And when he says no, what are you supposed to, of course, believe? Well, clearly he's not telling the truth. She wouldn't have asked the question, but in a non-rhetorical way, it would have been, I would love to hear Norah O'Donnell ask, why do you think, just genuinely, why do you think that when Letitia James, who campaigned politically on finding some reason to put me in jail, why do you think you never pressed her on that? Why do you think what have you reflected on that? Why is it with all of these people connected to the Biden White House and their visits to the Biden White House and all of these indictments that held off until I was actually running against Biden? Why do you think you ask none of those individuals these same sorts of questions? I of course, would not expect any sort of insightful answer necessarily, but I don't know, every so often it would just be potentially beneficial to have these individuals pressed on those questions. If anything, so the American people can further see their evasiveness, their attempt to tap dance around it. The absurdity of sitting across from a guy who was so clearly targeted for some of the most absurd things. Under the Biden administration, the FBI falsified documents to get a secret court to allow Comey's FBI to spy on him. FBI attorney pled guilty to this. This isn't in dispute. And then to ask Trump, approach him as if he's doing something wrong here. See, the rule is no one who is a critic of Donald Trump can be held accountable for any crime they commit. In fact, that's part of what Joe Biden attempted to do with all those pardons. Anyone and everyone, except James Comey, granted pardons not just for anything that they may have done in the past, but the future as well. Because you can't go after big state, big government, deep state Democrats. You can't go after anti-Trump people. No. Can't do that. Only average citizens, only conservatives, only Christians, only MAGA people, only Trump supporters. This is why we're learning more and more. Jack Smith, full-blown Stasi, secret police agency, spying on hundreds of Republicans. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company, as we get into that cooler weather, there's that common misconception that it's too late to get a new roof installed, and that is not always the case. I was chatting with Josh a couple of weeks ago now, and one of the things that he mentioned was that October through December, that's actually the best time to get a new roof installation. The cooler weather is actually easier on shingles during install. So if you know that you have damage, but you were thinking, oh man, I have to wait until spring now, that is not the case. If it's time to have the Pyramid team out to your home, just reach out to Josh. He can come out, do that free roof inspection for you, and then get you on the books. And they'll also work with you through that insurance process every step of the way so that everything that needs to be covered gets taken care of. Now you can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
What'd you think of J.D. Vance's Halloween costume?
I loved it. Oh, and people were just like, oh, this is unbelievable.
People on the left.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
I know. I thought it was great.
Of course, it was. It was fantastic. And it shows that the people in the Trump administration are joyful people with a great sense of humor. So if you missed it, of course, the left has long tried to really mock J.D. Vance. They started with this meme of him having like a chubby face and this curly hair. I'm not even sure exactly if the origins of that original meme were supposed to be based off of something. And they thought, oh, we're really going to show them putting out memes. Oh, look at this. J.D. Vance is a fat kid with curly hair. And, of course, it was the White House that immediately began retweeting it, re-putting it out there. And J.D. Vance for Halloween went as his meme, as you know, with the curly, long curly hair and the big, fat, chubby cheeks. And that's what he went as Halloween. And it's those sorts of things every time the media and their little echo chamber, like, we've really got them on the ropes now. Oh, boy, they're really mad. Oh, yes. Clearly, we see that in demonstration on a daily basis. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey everyone. Welcome to the show. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. If you have a yard, many of you do, and it's grass and maybe some flowers, and that is expensive real estate. That costs. We concern ourselves so much with, well, how much is my home worth per square foot? It's $1.38, or it's $1.89, or whatever it may be per square foot. But the land itself, the lot itself, how much is that? And what do you do with it? Do you treat it with the same amount of care and attention and recognition that that is a living space? It is almost like if you have a giant room in your home, but you decide to put nothing in it whatsoever. Well, of course you're not going to do that. You want to decorate. You want to make it accommodating. You want to utilize it. You paid for it. But for whatever reason, so many of us with our yards, we don't look at it that way. Well, that's where Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, they do. That's what they do, and that's what they did for me, and they've done, I know, for many of you as well. And that is take that outdoor living space that you paid for, that square footage, and turning it into an actual outdoor living space that isn't just a, quote, empty room, but instead has been set up. For me, it's a place that now I can have my grill. We've got seating. We've got a smokeless fire pit. It is more than enough room for what it is that we utilize it for. And we spend a significant amount of time out there, and that is something that can be done for you as well. So it improves not just the quality and value and overall look of your home, but just the way that you spend your time. And I know for us as a family, times when we may have been in our own little separate rooms, I'm out in the garage doing this, and my wife's over here doing that, we find ourselves outside together. And so it's just, it's facilitated more family time for us. I don't know, maybe you hate your family, so you can have it be a getaway for you. It just depends on how you want to use it. HunterHardscapes.com, you can find them at Nick's Endorsements, KSGF.com. We're going to talk with Congressman Burleson coming up here in just a couple of moments. The Pyramid Roofing Company text line is 417-447-KSGF. Now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 66. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 46. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 72. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 73.
Congressman Burleson joining us this morning. Thank you so much. Did you go out trick-or-treating on Halloween?
Well, we did. We had some friends that we don't live in a neighborhood, but we go over to their house in the Ravenwood area, and we just kind of our kids are friends with their kids, and we trick or treat together. But sadly, I mean, we still did it. My daughters didn't want to go. They sat by the campfire, and they're
Boo!
they're quote unquote too old to trick or treat.
I don't mind. Some people don't like the older kids trick-or-treating, and I don't know, maybe 20 years ago there's a different argument for that, but nowadays I'm just like anything that anyone does that involves being actually around other people in a social sort of way, I'm all supportive of. I mean, it's just with social media and everything, and to see kids that are laughing and to a teenager or younger, I'm all for it.
Yeah. I am too. I remember there was a time where it wasn't like there was a couple of years where it wasn't cool, and I didn't go trick or treating, and then suddenly it was like my junior and senior year. It's like, oh,
yeah.
Hey, wouldn't it be funny if we went trick or treating?
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Did you see JD Vance's costume?
I did.
I mean, isn't that
I did.
great?
That was so good.
For people
perfect.
For people that didn't see it, he dressed as his meme, the meme that, and this is part of what I love about not just Trump, but clearly culturally, it has been embraced, at least by J.D. Vance, and that meme that essentially at some point originated to make fun of him, to really stick it to him and to hurt his feelings, and it's something like so many other things that this administration has embraced and made their own, and so him dressing up as that meme, I just think it's a great personality trait of this administration.
He's funny. To be able to make fun of yourself like that, classic. But yeah, I think the meme was designed to make it look like he's overweight.
Yes.
Right? So, or he has weight issues. But
and the hair, that long permed hair.
Right.
The only thing I wish he had done differently is if he had I would have hired someone that does maybe like pretty high-end makeup for movies or theater and gotten a puffy prosthetic face put on.
Right. Yeah, that would have been a little over, but it worked.
It would have. Oh yeah, it worked without question.
Definitely trolls.
Yes.
He loves trolling people.
We're talking with Congressman Burleson. The shutdown continues, and the SNAP benefits. Well, explain this. So you've got the Democrats, of course, I think 13 times they voted to shut down the government, and SNAP benefits are part of that. And then it seems as if the administration's been faced with conflicting I don't know, rulings or approaches regarding whether they have the ability to continue to fund SNAP. What's going on with that?
So there's a Federal Reserve Fund that the president could access, and basically those court decisions say that he has to. I'm not sure. So then you've got two issues. You've got that issue, which if he does completely exhaust that fund, then you're talking 2 weeks of SNAP benefits. And then in addition, you've got the states who are kind of stepping in and using their reserve funds. I think Governor Parson did here in Missouri, or I'm sorry, Governor Kehoe did here in Missouri. So, yeah. And then, I think what's been inspiring is to see all the charities that have stepped up to the plate. And I think that it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Agreed.
Because the truth is, it is charity, folks. Like, it's charity. Whether you funnel it through the government or you're making the donation voluntarily to a nonprofit, it's still charity. And I believe strongly that true charities do a much better job than the government does in getting true aid to the people that need it.
Well, I think that this also is an opportunity for us, or some of us anyhow, to reflect on how upside down and backwards we have all of this, because that is the most effective form of charity. It's the individual volunteering their time, their efforts, their finances, and then collectively as well through volunteer organizations. And I've seen some of these stories. I think it was Golden City, maybe. There's government funds one sort of for people 60 and up, a lunch or a dinner, and how that was put on hold and the community came together. But it's almost put it's through this narrative that what an awful thing that people have had to step up and fill this void. No,
Yeah.
that's the start. That's where the starting point should be. The government is not the one that should be doing it. That's how it's supposed to be done, and it's more meaningful that way.
Yeah, wouldn't you rather keep more of your tax dollars and then have the ability to be charitable? Because the truth is, the American people is the most charitable
Yes.
nation on earth. And I think if you let people have more of their money, they will be giving with it, more generous with their dollars. And the other thing that I think is a phenomenon that, just to get a little bit wonky and nerdy, is that you've got this economic crowd out effect. So when government steps in and says, we're going to fund, the food banks, we're going to fund SNAP, we're going to fund your health care, right? Then the private charities, they step out. They say,
Right.
oh, well, that's being provided by the government. We don't need to do that service. And they become less effective. They no longer become salt to the community, if you will. They don't have an impact. Whereas before, and I think this truly was the nature of Christianity, is that, first Jesus, met the needs of the person right then and there. And then the relationship began. But when government is doing it, there's no second part to that. There's just this cold decision, or this cold transaction that occurs. And that's why I think we need to return to letting charities do this.
Well, and last week I talked about, it may have been before we had you on the program, being in church, and there was a discussion, or it was somewhere, I forget, but about a group of individuals and how they were making their second or third trip to somewhere in Africa. And it struck me, when you hear about churches, youth groups, or even adults that do this sort of charitable work, how it's always overseas. And that's when I'm always curious, well, why is that? It clearly isn't because of a lack of compassion for people here at home, but I think it goes to your point that because government steps in and says, no, don't worry, we'll take care of this, there's always somebody, quote, taking care of it. And so you have these organizations that end up going to countries where government doesn't necessarily do that because it doesn't have the means or the resources or the want to, and so that's where they go to find people who need it, is outside of this country where government says, get out of the way, don't worry, we'll take care of it.
Right. And if you go to those other countries, there is no aid like what our government has provided. And so there's this attitude. There isn't an attitude of gratitude.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not trying to say that.
Well,
that
just look
somebody don't.
There was a Federalist piece that noted, it was regarding Josh Hawley's editorial to the New York Times about food stamps, and they said just type in food stamps in TikTok, and you'll see and I think this is to your point. These weren't people posting on TikTok that were so grateful for tax dollars giving them SNAP benefits. These were entitled individuals that said, if I get cut off, I will steal, and you better get out of my way.
Yeah. And that's the culture that I believe that we create whenever we do this, through a cold system, through a bureaucratic system.
Sorry I interrupted you on that, but it made me think of those TikTok videos as you were but to your point about the lack of gratitude and how it shifts to this sense of total entitlement, because it's just something that shows up in your account and here's your card, and go about your days. Now, Trump has floated, which I disagree with. But I think some in the Senate agree with this idea of eliminating the filibuster. I think there's a number of. I think intelligent people can have differing perspectives on doing that. His approach is, I think, well, hey, if Republicans eliminate the filibuster situation, then they don't need the 60 votes, and then they can go ahead and just reopen the government where and the Democrats can't continue to block that. What are your thoughts?
I think that's dangerous to eliminate the filibuster. I think it's just, and while it's frustrating, and I think that the Democrats, it's really frustrating that they basically held the whole nation hostage. But the fear is, I think our original design, Thomas Jefferson crafted, is a system where the House is based on a simple majority, and the Senate has the ability to filibuster and protect the rights of the minority. And if we lose that will be a radical shift in the direction I don't think we want to go as a nation. And so that's why what I would advocate for is that we pass a bill that puts it into law, that the Senate has to have a 60 vote threshold for those things, or put a constitutional amendment out there that the Senate has to have a 60 vote threshold. In Missouri, or actually, I wouldn't mind if they changed the rule and said, and in fact, I would encourage this, if you change the rule to say, you have to actually go out there and verbally filibuster. You can't
this is what
sit in your office.
100%.
And that's what we did in Missouri. In the Missouri legislature, we would, whenever there was something that would be truly appalling to me, was I kind of was very cautious and judicious in when I would filibuster, because if you do it too much, then it's very tiring. And B, they tend to, it doesn't have the impact. So if there was an issue that truly harmed the district, or I felt like was, creating bigger government, then I would step in and filibuster, and usually get a team of people. And the more people that would be with me, the longer we could hold out. And eventually, either leadership comes to the table with a compromise, or they put the bill aside and say there's no way. And that's a good thing. But we had to actually stand on the floor,
right.
And it's not fun.
So explain that, because I'm with you 100%. I think that that should be the very first basic move in dealing with this. But will you explain to people how it is? I think they understand the concept, what you're talking about, and how in Missouri, filibuster, that means you just keep talking and talking and talking. And the purpose of that is to essentially stop government from progressing, and what the hope is of the minority is that the people who are in the majority will eventually say, okay, fine, we'll just put this aside, we don't have time to deal with this, and you essentially try to outweight them, or you keep talking. But that's not what happens in the Senate with the filibuster. Explain that to people.
Yeah, the federal government, they just simply say, well, they've changed the rules so that you have to have 60 votes in favor to end debate. And so, but then they don't actually make people go out there to debate.
Right. Yeah, so it's
result,
like a pretend filibuster. It's like, okay, we're just going to pretend there's a filibuster going on, but there's not really one. So there's no effort that has to be put into it.
That's right. And I think that, this is the reason why we have people that are ancient serving in our Senate, because the older you get, the more you do not want to be out there filibustering. You don't want late evenings. You don't want to but what we've done is we've created basically a very pampered Senate, which allows for people that are in their 80s and beyond to have no problem doing it, because there's no physical expectations. The Senate works very little. So there are senators who utilize every bit of their time, and they're working their tails off, but the expectation, the bar is very low. And And so I just think, I'll tell you, in the Missouri Senate, it was a grind. It was an absolute. Sometimes people want to run for office, they want to jump right into the Senate. I say to them, you're out of your mind. Run for the House. The House is, if you want your soul to be destroyed, run for the Senate. If you want to have a little bit of fun and feel like you're actually accomplish some things, run for the state legislature. It's a whole lot better, and your life is a lot better. So, I just think, we've pampered the federal Senate.
Yeah, I
and
agree.
The other thing, probably the reason why that dynamic occurs, is because in Missouri, for example, and in every state, all bills have to end on a certain calendar day. So Missouri, I think it's the 15th of May, or it's like the third Friday at 6:00 p.m. in May, right? So what happens is, because everything constitutionally ends, then the people who are filibustering have that as a leverage point, because as you get closer to the end of the year, then there is very limited time.
Right.
And so leadership is thinking, okay, we've only got 2 weeks here, and Burleson wants to filibuster an entire day on this one bill. And then they have to prioritize and say, it's not worth it. So let's just lay that over and move on to the next bill.
Yeah.
Right. But and the federal government used to be that way, but now it's a year-long. It never ends. It never ends. And so there is no impetus to kind of drive people to a point of compromise or discussion. And I think that we need to do 2 things in the federal Senate. We need to require them to actually filibuster. And then 2, we need to shorten the time, shorten the session, actually give a deadline, and then actually make it in that session, so that if you don't pass a budget by a certain date, then maybe it's automatically a CR or something. But we've got to end. This is a really broken system that the federal government is operating on.
Yeah, I'm for ending the fake filibuster and bringing back the real one. Congressman Burleson, anything else before we let you go this morning?
Nope.
Okay.
I'll be heading back this week for some meetings, even though we're not. The government isn't open. We're just staying busy. And I'm focused on trying to find some free market health care reform that we can do.
Sounds good, Congressman Burleson. Thanks, sir. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 66. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 46. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 72. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 73.
Okay, so let's see here. I want to read a text message that came in regarding the filibuster. We were talking with Congressman Burleson, and, Trump has said Republicans should just get rid of the filibuster so that they don't need the 60 votes required in order to get the government reopened, as Democrats for 13 times in a row have voted to shut it down, with the exception of a couple of Democrats, John Fetterman being one of them. And I don't like the idea of it for a number of reasons. But one of the reasons I don't care for the idea of it, I don't like doing it just because of the argument, well, Democrats would do it. Because that isn't really, now that doesn't mean that they won't do it in the future. And I don't like making decisions based off of what Democrats are going to do. Not that can't play into it strategically, but Democrats, why did they not already do this? They tried, but there were enough Democrats that voted against it to prevent it from happening. Kristen Sinema of Arizona, Democrat senator, was one. Then Joe Manchin, Democrat senator, was another one. And so, now arguably, people could say, well, but if they get enough votes, then, they would if they could. And sure, I'm sure that is the case. But, and in fact, I've heard it argued that, well, they're already doing it, or they've already done, no, that they tried to, but not all Democrats were on board. I could see Fetterman voting against it. If Democrats were to get a very thin majority, would there be other Democrats voting against? I don't know. Someone had texted in, President AOC would do away with the filibuster her first day. Now isn't the time to clutch your pearls, go nuclear, get it done. Well, the president can't do it. Now, if she were, I guess, president of the Senate, maybe that's what that's reference to. If she were to, well, she wouldn't become president of the Senate anyhow, even if she did beat Chuck Schumer in a primary and then win New York overall. But it's something the Senate has to vote on in order to do it. I just, like I said, Democrats have tried it. They didn't have enough votes within their own party to do it. I'm a believer, as Congressman Burleson noted, that it's not even a real filibuster. This is how, I'm just going to say it, how lazy these U.S. senators have become in this capacity. The episode of The Office where Michael Scott just yells bankruptcy and he thinks that means that he's officially filed and officially is in bankruptcy is similar to the way that the filibuster in the Senate works. Someone just says filibuster and they don't make him actually do it. They're just like, oh, okay. And so that 60 vote threshold you hear about is because that's how many votes it takes to end a filibuster. So in other words, if you had a real life filibuster and, going on and, you need to overcome it, that this is the vote that you need in order to get past that filibuster. But nobody's actually filibustering. It's not happening. The filibuster is the way it initially worked. Is there's something that is open for debate because it's going to be voted on, and someone in the minority party. So let's say, for example, when it comes to the continuing resolution, see, in reality, they're just, this is a vote to end the filibuster, if you will. That's what the 60 votes are. Now, what should happen is Democrats being in the minority. They don't want their own continuing resolution to get passed in the Senate as it did in the House. And so you would have Democrat senators that would just keep speaking nonstop, 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 nonstop. Like they would have to be giving speeches this entire time, refusing to stop, quote, debate. And the point of that is that eventually the party in charge, which would be the Republicans, would say, all right, we have other stuff to get done. You guys, you wore us out, and so we're going to go ahead and we're going to table this thing and we're going to move on to something else. That's how the filibuster is supposed to work. It's supposed to take at least some effort from the minority party. It isn't supposed to be an easy hijacking by the minority party in which they can just verbally declare filibuster and then not have to do anything. There's supposed to be some effort that has to go into it, but there's none whatsoever. And so this is part of the problem with the filibuster is that it's fake. It's a filibuster in name only. It's a fino. If the filibuster required filibusting actually wasn't in name only, but required the minority party to continue talking and talking and talking, I suspect we would not be in this government shutdown right now. I suspect Democrats would have already given up. And then the continuing resolution would have passed. That's the key. It isn't doing away with the filibuster. It's making the Senate actually utilize the filibuster as it was intended, not a pretend fake filibuster, which is what they do. To me, that right there, that solves all of these problems. Which, isn't this just typical Washington? Actually just doing it the most simple, taking the most simple step, and that is actually do the filibuster. Actually utilize it in the way it's intended, and then this problem would be solved. So, of course, that's not even on the table. Nobody's even talking about that. Most people, and including you probably didn't even know that this is how it worked. Because this is easier for them. Such a hassle. Oh, you mean we have to actually get up and talk all that time? And so I don't know. Well, I'm guessing if Republicans have, I don't know what I wish I'd asked Congressman Burleson this. Here's what I don't know. Does it take just a simple majority? Is because it's not an actual law, is it something that my majority party can just change without needing any input from the minority party? If that's the case, so in other words, can Republicans just make that change without worry about Democrats blocking it? And if that's the case, and they're not doing that, that tells me they would much rather, should they lose power, have the ability to, to have the easy filibuster than actually make it difficult, or they'd rather it go away altogether than have to deal with a filibuster in which you actually have to stand up and filibuster. Filibuster. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Pinnaker Honda, Becky wrote, we were stranded in Branson with an immobilized fob, we thought. Anyhow, called Pinnaker Honda for advice. Darren told us that we could get the car jumped because it probably wasn't the fob at all. Sure enough, that worked. And he scheduled us with Wes Oldman, even though it was a Monday and they were booked solid. He had us in and out of there in about an hour with a new battery, and we were back on the road home. Thank you, Wes and Darren. Barbara said, I can't say enough good things about Pinnaker Honda, from the receptionist who greeted us as we came in to the sales consultant, product specialist, and finance specialist who assisted us with our purchase, and our experience was pleasant to the extreme. Baylor Alexander was friendly, knowledgeable, professional, answering any questions we had. Some we didn't even think to ask. Justin Cartwright went over all the features of the Honda Ridgeline we purchased, making sure we knew where all of the controls were and how to adjust any setting to our preference. And man, with these new vehicles, is that ever important? We were treated courteously and professionally. The process easy, efficient. We left happy with our purchase and experience. This is a customer service at its finest. Thank you, Pinnaker Honda. Worst vehicle experience I ever had was out of state, and I found a vehicle. It was a pre-owned, and I was really excited about it. By the time I was done, I was like physically angry because they just drew it out, and then want to add this, and we got to do this, and then you're looking through the finance, and they put this on it. Well, we got to put that, and I thought, here they took me, a guy that was like really pleased and happy and feeling good and like, I get to, really love this new vehicle, and made me an angry person who never wanted to go back to that place again. And I just remember thinking, how absurd is that? But you can tell just by the volume of people who give feedback regarding Pinnaker Honda, and I know my own experience. It's why, my experience years ago, I was anxious to team up with them starting last year. Telling you about my experience and the experience of others. And it isn't that traditional vehicle purchase experience that so many of us are accustomed to. Pinnaker Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. There's a story about the hostile crowd surrounding Border Patrol agents in Chicago. And, of course, we see this increasingly in areas of the country where Democrat politicians continue to demonize the Border Patrol slash ICE agents, two agencies that most of the Democrat activists that turn violent, they don't know the difference from one to the other. They don't know what it is that ICE does versus Border Patrol. They have two different jobs. ICE agents are doing them and have been doing the more targeted, here's a rapist, here's a child molester, let's get that person and deport them, while Border Patrol is doing more of the sweeps, showing up at a Home Depot parking lot. And because the left is ignorant, they have no concept. It's interesting. And Border Patrol, there's some sort of disgruntled feelings within all of this, because what the left is accusing the Trump administration of doing, and that is just rounding up innocent people, the visuals of that come from what Border Patrol is actually doing. Yet these morons on the left, fueled by disinformation from the Democrat Party, think ICE is the one that's actually doing that, when ICE is primarily just doing the targeted stuff, going after these drug dealers and the murderers and the rapists. But as usual, people on the left have no idea what they're even talking about. They don't care. But the one thing we know is we're seeing an increase in violence, and these left-wing activists are emboldened because of Democrat rhetoric, because of the disinformation that Democrats are putting out there. You had Pritzker, the Democrat governor of Illinois, claiming that that kids were being tear-gassed by the Trump administration. Now, like most of these accusations, amazingly, there's no footage of it actually happening. In a day and age in which rarely is anything, particularly when you're talking about groups of people, it's almost impossible to not find somebody recording it. But zip-tying kids and tear-gassing children and all of these things we hear the Trump administration is doing, amazingly somehow no one ever catches this stuff on video. There's, of course, I think a valid question regarding free speech. Do elected officials have does free speech cover their right to lie about what ICE is doing that then in turn is believed by Democrat activists who believe because of what they think is going on, it is virtuous and morally imperative that they try and attack or even sometimes kill ICE agents? Now, people on the left say, yes, that is free speech. Free speech allows for us to do that. We oftentimes at the same time, everyone, well, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. People generally don't really understand what that means. You can cry or yell fire in a crowded theater if there is a fire. That terminology came from a Supreme Court case during World War I in which you had a bunch of socialists out there encouraging people to avoid the draft, to protest the draft. You had a couple socialists in particular that were arrested and convicted for doing this, and they went to the Supreme Court saying, no, it's freedom of speech. And the Supreme Court, Oliver Wendell Holmes, specifically came up with the terminology, but it was unanimous that no, this is an instance in which there is an allowance for the government to imprison these individuals because it wasn't speech so much. What they were doing is they were actively encouraging people to do something that was that was not only in defiance, but could be detrimental to the cause of the United States at war. Now, some people may disagree with this. Some people, may agree with it. But it was a unanimous decision. And point being, ultimately, it was that case in which Oliver Wendell Holmes utilized the expression that you can't cry or yell fire in a crowded theater. But that wasn't in a vacuum. That was in the context of, if it's not true, you can't knowingly make claims that it's not protected in his assessment and of the Supreme Court at the time, that you cannot make false claims that in turn are utilized by individuals to do something, particularly prevent the United States of America or innocent citizens from carrying about their everyday lives. And I think that that's important to understand. Because whether one wants to agree with it or not, I think there's a very strong argument that it is exactly what that definition, that description of yelling fire in a crowded theater, and how that is not protected by the First Amendment, arguably what they were talking about is exactly what these Democrat mayors and Democrat members of Congress and Democrat governors are doing today. They are making false accusations and spreading disinformation about what is occurring in this country that in turn is activating activists to take out action against those particular agents. We're talking about, again, ICE, Border Patrol, all law enforcement, frankly, at this time. And that I find it interesting that when it comes to the issue of free speech, the left in particular, they will oftentimes throw around that, well, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, not understanding the context of that whatsoever. But that context is exactly what is going on today, but Democrats are the ones yelling fire in a crowded theater, which the Supreme Court found at the time, I think it was 1919, somewhere around there, that was not protected constitutional speech. Because you can cause chaos. You can cause people to be harmed based off of your disinformation, deliberate disinformation. Democrats know that ICE agents aren't tear gassing children. They know that they're not zip tying children and kidnapping them in the middle of the night and, quote, disappearing them. They know that's not true. That's why they can't give any specific examples of it. And when you in turn have, and they know that this is happening as well, people not only physically attack, but then in turn, we've seen the attempted assassination and subsequently the accidental murder of 2 illegal aliens because of that yelling fire in a theater. A step further was the announcement by Democrat members of Congress last week or the week before that they were going to develop an app with crowdsourcing information and otherwise that allow people to know where it is ICE agents are. Well, it was just that sort of app that the individual who tried to assassinate ICE agents at that facility down in Texas, it's the same sort of app that he used. It would be one thing if you announce the development of an app and then subsequent to that, someone utilizes the app to try to kill ICE agents. But when you decide as government officials you're going to develop one and make it available to the public after you know how they're being used, if ever there was I don't know if ever, well, at least in modern times, there's a greater example of yelling fire in a crowded theater in a way that the Supreme Court has found is not constitutionally protected. I don't know there's been a greater example of that than what we're watching with Democrats right now, elected and unelected, regarding their accusations against ICE and Border Patrol. Traffic update, I'm Nick Reed. Ozarks Elder Law, we talked with Lori Rook Friday as we were broadcasting live from Scramblers, and her primary focus, she wanted to really talk about the Springfield Veterans Day Parade, which I guess that's this weekend, right? Because the Willard one was this past weekend.
Yes.
And
I think it's on Saturday.
Or is it the next Saturday?
No, it's this Saturday.
It's one of the two.
Stand by. I will look.
All right. And so this is, Springfield used to also have one, and then the city, the city. There was, I know for a fact there was a demand to bring it back because I'd had people talk with us about it before and needing somebody to back it. And once Lori Rook caught wind of it, of course, she, utilizing her resources with Ozarks Elder Law, said, yeah, let's make it happen. And last year was the first in which it came back to Springfield. And so it'll be happening once again this year. Anyhow, point being is, after we were talking about it, I mentioned to her that all of the different areas that I try and cover regarding what it is Ozarks Elder Law does, I don't know that I really talked much about veterans. And she said, yeah. And she said, in fact, of the 5 ways to pay for nursing homes, one of them is if you are a veteran. That's one of the 5 avenues. But it's stuff that you have to make sure that you plan ahead of time, because every day that goes by and you get closer to needing that utilization, whether it's a nursing home or otherwise, is a day that if you're not already planned and have it all set up through Ozarks Elder Law, then it just becomes more and more difficult as time goes on. So I listen, once you turn 18 years old, you need these services. What does it cost in order to get taken care of, whether you're just an 18-year-old guy or gal getting out there in the real world, or someone who's served his country, or something in between, a farmer with land? Consultation is a courtesy. Does not cost you a thing to find out what you need to have done and how much it'll cost, and you can do so at ozarkselderlaw.com. We'll give you the parade info coming up in the next hour. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, welcome to the show. All right, what's the deets
The
on the
deets,
Springfield Veterans Day Parade?
I have those deets. So it'll be Saturday, November 8th,
Okay, so it
11
is this Saturday.
to 3 p.m. The parade will start around East Traffic Way around the Expo Center lot. And of course, that is sponsored by our good friends Ozarks Elder Law. So that's what I got. That's all I got for you.
All righty. Okay, very good. Yeah, I thought it was this upcoming Saturday, but then I suddenly thought, wait, is it or is it the following? I mean, it makes sense that it would be this upcoming weekend, but you never know.
That's true. And I think Lori said, I think that there's going to be some food trucks out there.
Yes, she did say that. That's right. She did say there would be
didn't
some
make
food
it up.
trucks out there. You did not make that up. Very good. So here's how psychotic the left is, as if you need another example. I kept seeing these headlines about how Mark Wahlberg fans were dropping him, were turning against him because of his, well, here's one headline, for example. Mark Wahlberg moves near Trump, fans say good riddance. Now, when I saw numerous headlines referencing this, I assumed it meant... It listed him as moving closer to Trump ideologically or on some particular issue, on loving America. No. That's not why it is that his left-wing fans are dropping him. It's because he's moved to Florida, and that's where Mar-a-Lago is. This is how insane you people have become. Absolutely nuts. Oh, and it's not just in Florida, but it's close to Mar-a-Lago. How many miles that is, I don't know. Does it really matter when it comes to people who are insane? So listen to this article. I mean, it's a short one. Mark Wahlberg has officially swapped the Las Vegas desert for Florida sunshine, buying a $37 million mansion in the elite Stone Creek Ranch community in Delray Beach. The massive 18,000 square foot home boasts 7 bedrooms, a theater, gym, pool, and garage space for 7 cars. But it's not just size of the property that's making headlines. It's the timing and location. Fans quickly noticed Wahlberg's new neighborhood sits just a short drive. Now, again, how far is that? They don't list. A short drive from Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. That connection alone has stirred a wave of speculation about whether the actor's relocation was strategic. Wahlberg, who once said he respected Trump's leadership style, is now being called out by his critics who believe his move is no coincidence. Social media lit up soon after reports of the purchase surfaced. Some fans claimed that they were done supporting the actor, saying his move to Trump country made his politics clear. Others defended Wahlberg, arguing he's simply choosing a better tax climate and lifestyle, a path several celebrities have taken since leaving California's high-cost scene. Wahlberg hasn't commented publicly on the chatter, but the optics are hard to ignore. Florida has become a magnet for conservative-leaning stars, and Wahlberg's new home adds fuel to the narrative that he's aligning closer to the crowd. Real estate insiders note that the estate, originally listed for $45 million, sold below asking price, making it a lucrative deal for the actor, entrepreneur known for his business instincts. Whether this is a political statement or just another real estate upgrade, Walgreen has positioned himself in a state that mirrors the cultural shift Hollywood's elite keep debating. Now, how delusional and much of an obsessed, paranoid delusion lunatic does one have to be to think that Mark Wahlberg, who is a business-savvy individual, decided to move to Florida because Donald Trump has Mar-a-Lago there? Do you know how dumb that is?
Do you think that they were also angry that he lived 18 miles away in Las Vegas from the Trump International Hotel there?
Oh, they probably did. I could tell you probably how this occurred. No, because they weren't paying attention. But Florida, they just, anytime anything pops up, I'm telling you, there are certain words that when the left hears them, they get on their keyboards and they start doing research. And Florida is one of them. Anytime anything happens in Florida, they try and their instinct is there's got to be something bad about this that we can blame on Trump or Ron DeSantis. One of the two. I mean, it's automatic. And so they hear he's moving to Florida, and that's just that. I'm trying to explain insanity, and you just can't do it. You cannot logically explain the illogical. the other telling thing about this is the notation that, well, it's usually conservatives that move to a place like Florida. Well, let me tell you why they move there. And this is where the left doesn't understand normal behavior. They move there because it's a better place to live overall. It is a better business climate. It is a better cultural climate in terms of people's happiness. It is a safer climate. The education levels are better. I mean, just across the board. And there's more freedom. There's less of this constant obsession with how people live their lives, and it's just better. It's better. So why is it, one may ask, are only conservatives moving there and not people on the left? Because people on the left would rather have a lower quality of life than ever admit that they were wrong about something. They would rather live in a crime-ridden area with higher taxes, where you have a massive gap between the lower and upper income, where you have people having sex in the streets and defecating on sidewalks and needles all over the place, where you can have the latest, that it's been revealed through text messages that one of the fires that ended up getting way out of control, killing people in the LA fires last year, it was because the firefighters were told to leave an area that they said, this fire is still smoldering. And they're like, it'll be fine, just leave. And there's only been, I think, 2 permits as of last month provided for rebuilding purposes in that area. It is a nightmare for people who just want to live a normal life, whereas Florida is the opposite. People on the left are so filled with this paranoia and disinformation and hatred that they would rather have a worse off life than be around people who aren't like them, and to admit that they may be wrong in their assessment about certain things, particularly politically. It isn't so much that, quote, conservatives are all moving to Florida. It's the fact that liberals refuse to go live where there is a higher quality of life if it defies what their belief system is. It's just that they're not going. How demented and just crazy do you have to be to see a guy move his family to a place that people are all, I mean, you've got a massive net gain, and people are coming from New York and Florida, New York and California in particular, coming to, but, Mark Wahlberg, well, clearly it's because, what, it doesn't even make sense. Let's say for a moment, I can't believe we're even exploring the lunacy of the left here. Let's say for a moment that was why he decided to move to Florida. Why? What would that get him? Like, if it wasn't because of quality of life, if it wasn't because he felt it would be a better environment to raise his family, if it wasn't because it was a better business climate, if it wasn't because he got a great deal on that home, no, none of those reasons. It is because that's where Donald Trump has Mar-a-Lago. Why would that even work? What do you think, that he thinks he's going to, like, run into him or something? If Mark Wahlberg wanted to have an audience with Donald Trump, he could do it now. He could do it anytime he wanted. He wouldn't have to move to Florida. I think some of this is projection because, frankly, it's a sort of lunatic move that somebody on the left probably would make. Oh, I'm going to move over there because I'll be closer to this celebrity. Or, Michelle Obama lives over there. Oh, I'm going to move. I could see somebody on the left making such an irrational move. These are nutty people. Can you imagine you're Mark Wahlberg and you find out this is what people on the left are? It's just, keep it up, folks. Keep it up. Keep up the insanity. Every day. Every insane conspiracy theory, every alienation of a normal person because they aren't part of your cult is a day that another person wakes up and says, man, those people are crazy. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 66. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 46. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 72. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny with a high near 73.
Yeah, 27, 28 miles.
Yep.
That's how. Yeah. So I'm guessing people on the left, they think that Mark Wahlberg is imagining he's going to be shopping at Target like 14 miles away, and
Yep.
and Donald Trump will be there as well. These people are so stupid. I mean, it's just they are. If we did not have these people would not have lived beyond, I don't know, 17, 18 years old once upon a time. If this is what a quote social safety net creates, people that are this stupid still able to walk around and exist. They would have the 99% of these people that you hear on the left that take these perspectives would have accidentally killed themselves in one fashion or another before they were old enough to actually make any sort of difference in society. But we have this dadgum social safety net that it really does, it just hog ties Darwinism to the point that we have all these idiots running around all over the place breeding. It's just true. Okay, let's get traffic. There's what I thought was somewhat of an amusing exchange on. Wait, let's see. No, we'll save that for a bit later here. Put that aside. Oh, I want to give a perspective on something as the U.S. military strikes another drug boat in the Caribbean. Secretary of War Hegseth compares narco traffickers to Al Qaeda. The strike brings to 67 the total number of alleged drug traffickers that the Trump administration has killed in military strikes. Now, there's a Fox News story, Trump's narco terror boat crackdown hailed by mothers of victims. One boat, two boat, three boat, boom. When Ann Thunder lost her 15-year-old son Weston to a counterfeit Percocet pill laced with fentanyl, she never imagined her grief would tie her to the nation's fight against the drug. Now, as the Trump administration orders military strikes against suspected drug smuggling boats in the Caribbean and Pacific, Thunder says her son's death has become her rallying cry to continue the war on fentanyl in the U.S. Quote, "These are murders," she told Fox News Digital. "These people on their ships are murderers delivering a product that will kill hundreds and thousands of people on American soil. President Trump is doing something. He's taking decisive action to make sure this doesn't happen again." And the article goes on. Now, most of this fentanyl originates out of China. This is part of one of the points of conflict between the Trump administration and the communist Chinese is that they have been deliberately delivering the ingredients of fentanyl to countries below the border so that it can be put together and sold here into the United States. China also has some of the strictest laws against drug use in their country. Why? Because they recognize that it does damage to a country overall. The more people that you have that are addicted to drugs, the less strength you have as a country. They know this. So it doesn't take a real stretch to understand why it is China is actively doing what they can to import these drugs into the United States. It's not money. This isn't a revenue source, at least that's not the primary driver behind it. It is to weaken the United States of America. This is part of China's war on this country. They have a number of different fronts in which they have sort of slow walking this war, in which they are already on our land by way of universities, the different media outlets, particularly when it comes to Hollywood. All of these different companies and spokespersons that want to have access to all of the people in China as customers, they do whatever it is that China wants. And so that has allowed China to coax Americans into self-censorship. And that is everything from the way that movies end to the way that certain stories are covered by media outlets to celebrities that stand up and defend China. And so you have the Chinese that have set up their own police forces here in the United States. This is not in dispute. You have China that have infiltrated our universities here. They have paid, millions and millions and millions of dollars and in turn to our universities, and they've been given access to those universities. And when it comes to weakening our culture, the dependency on drugs is something that they continue to push forth. And it results in lots of people dying. According to the CDC, in 23, approximately 72,000 overdose deaths in the United States were due to fentanyl. That's about 7 in 10. So about 70% of drug overdoses is fentanyl. And the vast majority, this is coming into our country, again, originating in China. And it's being delivered by these narco-terrorists. Now, let's just do a mind shift for a moment here. Let's say that the Trump administration, or any administration for that matter, got word that Al-Qaeda or ISIS was on a boat, a ship, making its way to the United States with some sort of poison gas. And it was poison gas that, once released, could kill tens of thousands of Americans. And we knew for a fact they were headed here with it for the purpose of releasing that gas. Would we have a problem with the President of the United States taking them out? Now, I think most people would say no. By the way, what I'm talking about now isn't necessarily to convince you one way or another. It's just a different way to look at this. These drugs that are deliberately being imported into the United States are a poison that kill people, just like sarin gas, just like ricin, just like anthrax. The difference is, and this is perhaps the more nefarious component to it, is there are people here in the United States that once they get connected or addicted to it, actually welcome it and pay for it. Furthermore, it is oftentimes something that becomes generational. So we're not simply talking about a delivery of something like, let's say there is some sort of deadly gas that is released on a subway by a bunch of terrorists, and all of those people, let's say 800 people die. That isn't something that then spreads to another 800 people, and then generationally, the kids and then the grandkids get it. But when it comes to drug abuse and drug addiction, that is something that continues. It has residual impact. By getting one person addicted to an illegal drug, that then in turn, in all likelihood, is going to result in somebody within that person's orbit probably getting addicted to drugs as well. Oftentimes, again, because of cycle of those sorts of behaviors, you may be talking about kids and then grandkids and having a generational issue. Now, I'm not saying that this perspective is one that necessarily has to, it doesn't mean that one has to support the Trump administration's approach on this, but I've gone back to this over and over again, how after 9/11, we had the big 9/11 commission, and the theme of everything that we learned was that ultimately we had our blinders on because we were accustomed to a traditional form of war. And even though terrorists were fully, it was pretty clear what their goals were, but that wasn't a war we understood. So we just ignored it and we treated it as a, quote, law enforcement matter. The 1993 World Trade Center bombing was treated as a not as an act of terrorism, but as a simple law enforcement matter, as if they were bank robbers. That was our approach until 9/11. And we vowed we will never allow ourselves, because of our traditional views of war, be blindsided again. To allow ourselves to be vulnerable because we don't recognize when somebody is at war with us. Well, we're right back there again. It's China this time. And one of the many weapons they're utilizing in order to weaken us as a nation overall is fentanyl. I believe it is a legitimate argument to note that the importation of fentanyl in the fashion that the Chinese have been doing, and now, you've got these different boats running it up here from Venezuela, is just as, and perhaps even more dangerous than if they had anthrax, if they had ricin, if they had some sort of poisonous gas that they would release in a subway, or a bomb that they were going to blow up an airliner with. They are forms of war. They are forms of killing Americans for that very purpose. Again, it's not, the origins of these drugs coming into the United States is not a financial thing. Now, it is for the drug runners, the people who are doing the delivering, but that's not why China's doing it. Any more than, the hijackers on 9/11 were becoming pilots for financial purposes or learning to fly planes, or anyone who, again, releases any sort of terrorist attack. This is just a different form of it that we're refusing to recognize, except for apparently the Trump administration. They get what's going on. And I would argue that this is the benefit of having a president who really truly understands China like no other president has in modern history. He knows what's going on here. And when you recognize and you think to yourselves, if this were poison gas being delivered to the country by our enemies for the purposes of killing Americans, would we have a problem with the President of the United States taking them out? And I think most people would say no. In fact, he better do that. And I believe that that's exactly how the Trump administration is viewing this. It's just a different form of poison, and it's a slow kill, but a deeper one. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. The other day I was scrolling on Facebook and I saw someone in one of those community pages asking for the best HVAC company in the area. And I noticed that the original poster had turned off the comments, and it's because they had like 60 plus comments. And so I looked and it was almost a different name in every single comment. And to me, that is not helpful because now you have 60 names and you know nothing about them. If you are in that situation and you're not sure who to call, I recommend that you look up the reviews for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. They have a 4.9 on Google Reviews, which is awesome. And the one thing that you will see over and over is just how nice they are and how they don't use scare tactics on you. And of course, I always recommend them, but that is because I've used them multiple times throughout the years, one of which being when my husband was on deployment. It was the hottest day in the year. My AC went out and they were out at my house just a couple of hours after I called, and I will forever be grateful for that. If it's time to have the Foreman team out to your home, reach out to Russell today. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Before we hit the traffic, we have a happy hour Friday.
That's right.
New location.
Yep.
New location. All right. The Vineyard Market. Now, if you aren't familiar with the Vineyard Market, location-wise, it is right off 65 in Ozark. You know where the Lambert's exit is?
Mm-hmm.
That exit. If you take that exit and you're going to turn right to get to at the stoplight there to go to Lambert's, you go left instead, and then back sort of to your back left. There's B29s. There's a bank there, and then there's Vineyard Market. It's an incredible place. I don't know. Do they still have bridge construction going on there?
Ooh, I don't know. I never make my way down there. But what I did was I put all of this information in the homepage slider, and I put all of that too. It's right next to Cafe B29 and across the street from Lambert's Cafe. I also created like a little clickable map too. So you can just click that map and it'll take you right there.
If you've not been there, it's a great place for food. It's a great place for drinks. It's a great place for cigars if you like cigars. I think you're going to like it. They actually, so there's outdoor areas, and what's the weather supposed to be like that day?
For Friday?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Well, they have heat. They have sort of the heat
that'll be
out there
nice.
also, so that could be nice.
Friday, it's going to be sunny and 66.
Okay, so it's going to be a great time for that. It'll be 4 to 6, and but they also have part of their facility is a big sort of nice area if you want to smoke cigars, and it has this massive air filtration system. It's amazing because when you're in the restaurant bar side without the smoking, you can't tell. You would not know. And it's been set up deliberately that way. They have a very nice walk-in humidor, and they know a lot about they have a lot of different wines. They know a lot about them. They're very well versed on it. Some of you may know the owners, or at least remember the name Luke Davis. Luke and Heather Davis are the owners of the Vineyard Market, and Luke used to have a show here, Tech Talk, which aired on Saturdays, and he's filled in for me. It's been a while since he's filled in for me, but he had Davis Cellulars. You may remember those, and then they sold those, and one of the things that they did, gosh, I don't know how long ago, we'll have to ask them, they wanted to venture into creating this really unique, and what I would say in terms of presentation, higher end quality, place for people to go and enjoy the finer things, if you will. And so we're going to take a crack at doing some happy hours there. The first one will be this Friday, 4 to 6. And I haven't put on the calendar yet, but he's going to join us after 8 o'clock tomorrow in studio. And we'll talk a bit with him. And just be nice to have him back on the airwaves here. So that's going to be this Friday, which is, we're leaving for the Great Escape Sunday. And it'll be our last little gathering and get-together before we head off to Cancun, where we'll be broadcasting next week. So Vineyard Market, great place to stop. Again, lunch, dinner. They've got fantastic menu as well as gifts and wines and so much more. And hopefully you will join us for our new happy hour location this Friday, 4 to 6, Vineyard Market.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 66. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 46. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 72. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny with a high near 73.
I want to play some audio. This is a Democrat congressman by the name of Seth Moulton. He is from Massachusetts, and he was on MSNBC, and he spread the disinformation that Trump was, what was it he said? He was engaged in illegal sexual activity with minors, making claims regarding the Epstein file that it's just, they weren't true at all. In fact, some are wondering whether or not Trump will sue him for spreading the disinformation. But the reason I wanted to play it is because, for whatever reason, I think honestly out of exhaustion, Joe Scarborough was pretty much like, where'd you get that information? And listening to a Democrat, particularly on MSNBC, when they are so accustomed to the ability to just throw out the most insane charges and accusations without anybody just simply saying, now what? Where did you get that? Not even challenging them so much as just saying, where did you get that information? And the way that they just tap dance and fall apart around it. Here's the exchange.
You are one of the people like him who took advantage of young girls with Jeffrey Epstein, then we're going to sort of make that go away. I mean, fundamentally, Speaker Johnson...
We don't have evidence that he took advantage of young girls with Jeffrey Epstein.
Right. Just common sense be damned.
I'm not saying common sense be damned. I'm saying facts. Let's look at the facts. Is he in the Epstein files?
He's obviously in the Epstein files. And the reason that fundamentally Speaker Johnson has us on vacation is because he does not want to seat the newly elected Democratic representative.
Right, but you said he took advantage of young girls. You have absolutely no evidence of that.
I think it's pretty obvious that that's what's going on.
You think it's pretty obvious?
I do. And I think it's pretty obvious to the Republicans.
John Lemire, any reporting on this?
Well, we know that he's friends with Epstein. We know the birthday card was in there. I mean, he has not been accused of any wrongdoing.
No.
I think that's the point you're trying to make. But also, certainly here, that we know that Speaker Johnson has kept the House out of session, in large part to not seat the woman, the Congresswoman-elect from Arizona, who would provide the decisive votes to release more material. So, yeah, certainly that would be, any association with further embarrassment.
And also the book that Virginia Giuffre wrote said she never saw him around there. And I'm not doing his bidding. I'm just saying there's enough things to talk about Donald Trump without talking good.
Isn't it amazing when somebody in the world of journalism just actually is like, well, wait a minute, that actually isn't true.
I know, it's refreshing. It doesn't happen too terribly often nowadays.
How great is it to, I mean, with what ease to be a Democrat when confronted with the fact that there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever what you're saying is true, and the response is, well, it's just obvious. Clearly not. Not only is it not obvious, it's not even obscure. Like, there's nothing. No, well, I mean, common sense. Okay, still, throwing out words like obvious and common sense does not make it obvious or common sense. These people have no adherence to the truth whatsoever. You want to know why Congress isn't in session right now? Why? For what reason? For what reason? The big item right now in Washington is the continuing resolution, which Congress has already passed. They passed the Democrats' continuing resolution some time ago. Everything's at a standstill because the Democrats keep voting it down in the Senate. So there's really no reason to be there. But these conspiracy theories that, well, it's because Johnson doesn't want to seat this new member of Congress because she somehow is going to be the key to unlocking all this stuff. Do you know how insane you people sound? You don't know, because you are insane. I mean, just the level of delusion. And here's the thing. If you're an objective person, and maybe you just like, well, I don't really know. Here's a guy who's a sitting member of Congress that just brazenly lied. Lied. You know, now he's a member of Congress, so I'm sure he'll, talk about the debate clause or something. But George Stephanopoulos, ABC had to pay out a lot of money because George Stephanopoulos falsely claimed Trump was found guilty of rape. I think $30 million that lie cost. So I'm sure in as we perhaps give Joe Scarborough too much credit here, that $30 million check may have been what was in Joe Scarborough's mind when he's like, wait a minute, there's actually no evidence of that whatsoever. Had that lie not, resulted in punitive results for ABC, I don't know that Joe Scarborough necessarily would have been so quick to point out the truth. And like he said, I'm just talking facts. These are the facts. This is why you don't have credibility. This is why the Democrat Party people don't believe you. And not to mention, what sort of human being are you? There isn't enough for you to criticize Trump on. You have to make up false accusations. This was part of Joe Scarborough's point there towards the end. He's like, there's plenty of stuff to talk about Trump. You don't have to make things up. Apparently they do. After a quick break, Michelle Obama complaining once again. I'm telling you, I don't think you can join the club left of left-wingers unless you consistently prove your credentials by displaying levels of ungratefulness that are almost awe-inspiring. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. If you have home buying needs, you got Emily Johnson. If you need to sell your home, you also have Emily Johnson. Maybe you need to do both. You found that other perfect home and you put in for it and you're like, oh my gosh, we weren't even looking. We found it. Oh gosh, now we have to sell this one. Don't worry, she's going to help navigate you through all of that. Interview realtors. It's a information suggestion that Emily Johnson is always providing, saying that, listen, because of the ease in which it takes to become a realtor, take a test, pay $500, boom, you're one. In fact, there's so many, she noted about a month ago, at the time, there were more licensed realtors in the area than actual homes for sale. But a lot of them aren't active. Some of them do it just on the side. So whenever it is you are looking to sell your home or helping someone or having someone help you find that home as a realtor, interview these people first. Put them through that. And then pick the one that's best for you. I suggest, of course, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. You can find her under Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. Michelle Obama, who every time she opens her mouth proves to me to be just a nag of a wife. She can't seemingly talk about Barack Obama without taking some sort of dig at him. And she's also showing just the level of ungratefulness. Here she is recently speaking to ABC's Robin Roberts.
You said we were all too aware that as a first black couple, we couldn't afford any missteps.
Yeah.
And you also say, as a black woman, I was under a particularly white hot glare. Did you feel that?
For sure. You can't afford to get anything wrong because you didn't get at least until the country came to know us, we didn't get the grace that I think some other families have gotten.
Are you serious? Where to even begin? You didn't get the grace that all the other... Oh, are you talking post-Obama era as well? Like Melania? Who has never once, best I can tell, said anything that could even be perceived as a mean or nasty comment to anyone else. Yes, yet that woman gets trashed left and right. I mean, even Hillary Clinton, though she certainly had it coming, did have to deal with a certain amount of scorn when she was First Lady. And like I said, she earned it. This piece of crap, former First Lady, no, they didn't receive the same grace that everyone else has. Was there, they were just under scrutiny, no one else, particularly as a black family. You couldn't get criticized because if you were, anyone that did the criticism was accused of being racist. You were protected from criticism. You had this magical bubble around you. Any criticism, particularly for the great Michelle Obama, well, clearly it's racism. You weren't allowed to give honest assessments of the Obamas. Was there a magazine cover she wasn't on 80 times a week? I mean, they went so far. The goddess worship that was just poured upon her to the point, like, her arms became a talking a thing that people, oh, her arms, like, what are you talking about? You're just weird at this point. Oh, everything about her is wonderful, everything. Yeah, exactly. What has she done? Well, she just, she's just so wonderful and inspiring. Never has there been, in modern history that I've observed, a first lady that really on her own accomplished so little, yet was treated with such grace and such unearned praise as Michelle Obama. And, I mean, just treated like, even to this day, do you think there's any former first lady that gets treated or has ever in her lifetime been treated with such just, I don't even know the term to use, just overwhelming love and gushing and whatever you want you get as Michelle Obama? Do you think Laura Bush gets Michelle Obama treatment when she's out there? Now, Hillary Clinton kind of, but again, not even to the degree that Michelle Obama gets. Do you think Barbara Bush got this treatment? Do you think Nancy Reagan got this treatment? Melania, I think we all know she doesn't come anywhere close to getting the sort of treatment Michelle Obama gets. And again, the thing that's just so what an ungrateful piece of trash. Absolute ungrateful piece of trash. To sit around and whine. This is what when I talk about how unhappy people naturally gravitate towards the Democrat Party and the left. Can you imagine? There are few people, particularly given that she didn't really contribute to any of it whatsoever, that has the ability to live the lifestyle that Michelle Obama has. And it is because she grew up in this country, yet she has the level of lack of gratitude to complain about it and to act like she's had it worse than anyone. What a waste of America's compassion, kindness, and efforts on that woman. I don't care for her much. Fawning. Thank you, who texted in. That's the term I was looking for. Millionaire Billie Eilish. She received some award Wednesday night, the Wall Street Journal Magazine Innovator Award, and she was up there and she said, "I'd say if you have money, it'd be great for you to use it on good things. Maybe give it to some people in need. Love you all, but there's a few people in here that have a lot more money than me. If you're a billionaire, why are you a billionaire? No hate, but yeah, give your money away." And, of course, see, this is the thing about being on the left. You can always find somebody who has it, quote, better than you that you can claim they're not doing enough. A lot of people were well, she's given away a lot, but still, she could live on $48,000 a year. Lots of Americans do. Why didn't she give all that away? But she gives it away by saying, there are a lot of you richer than me. See, the left always finds someone who's just above them that they can blame for the woes of the world.